scripts on the store managing access using a single user group-based access. Super handy. All right, that sounds cool. We'll have to check out the scripts you have on the shop, Evo app. It sounds like Galileo has started the stream, so we're on Twitch now, I guess. So yeah. Any other questions from the crowd?
Do you know how many lights we can res in a scene?
Oh my goodness.
It's interesting doing when you get to about 1,000 of them with a script. I mean, they just stop rendering after a while. But I was hoping there'd be a way to query how many you're allowed to res, so I could track it nicely.
I do not know off the top of my head. I'm a little concerned if you're getting to that limit, though. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do?
I will say I would not recommend it.
I was painting things with lights. It was fun.
All right. Yeah. If you can use the emissive stuff, it's obviously better.
I know.
But yeah, you know what you're doing. You're just messing around. I don't know what the limit is. I'd have to ask. Of course, if there's shadow casters, you will bring people's machines to their knees. So be careful with that.
I actually tried that as well. It does a neat trick where it just decides which ones to render or not render if you do it with shadow casters.
Fair enough. Evo Av says there's some pull requests pending. Strange, I haven't seen those. I'll have to look for it. Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'll take a peek. I wonder if it's getting filtered out of my email or something, but all right, I'll look for those. Thank you for submitting code. That's great. And some bug reports on the simple scripts. Anything in particular you want to chat about there on the simple script bugs? Well, give him a sec. Can open the issue. It's on GitHub. All right. I will get to that a bit later just because I'm not sure exactly where to go right now. I was going to show you a script that I put apparently in a different version of this scene, but I just put it up on the GitHub repo recently, which is just a little script to apply an impulse on a simple script message. This was something that was requested for someone who's making like a dice rolling game. So I thought it might be handy to show, just walk through it for you guys. So I put it into this this folder here. It's called Impulse Bump, and just pulling up the code here. Sorry, managing Windows. And all this. The script isn't trying to do too much, but basically it can apply an impulse which will make an object sort of jump upwards, and then it also gives it a random angular velocity. So in the case of a dice, it kind of throws it into the air and spins in a random direction so that it can land on a different side, or however it lands. So I was going to run through that script, see when the stream catches up a bit, but you can see it has a few properties and a random number generator, and some flags about whether or not it should apply a linear or an angular impulse depending on how it's configured. So it requires the object to be a dynamic rigid body, which is this is just the sort of standard code to check to make sure that it has a rigid body and that it's set to dynamic, and then it just checks to see if it should apply the linear versus the angular impulse based on how the properties are set, and we make sure that the direction is normalized, and then if this is being run as an interaction, which means you click on the object to make it bounce, then it adds the interaction and subscribes to it, and when it is interacted with, it applies the impulse. If it's being run from a simple script message, then it basically just subscribes to that script event and also applies the impulse. But the only other thing it does in that case is it also forces the object to be released in case it's being held onto by an avatar somewhere in the scene. So that's a relatively new API that's in there, the release held object API. So it streams a couple seconds behind, but the release held object API is a way to force anyone who's holding an object to drop it, which can be handy to keep things within a volume or whatever. And then the actual code to apply the impulse is just using the rigid body. It adds a linear impulse in the direction with the specified force, and then it computes a random vector based on just the variance that's been specified. So, and then it makes sure that that's non-zero, and it applies it to the object afterwards. So that's about it. It's not too fancy, but it's up there on the GitHub repo. Does impulse take mass into consideration? No. Well, it is a force, so yeah, if you apply the same force to a heavy object, it'll obviously move it less far or less abruptly than it will to a lighter object. So it takes mass into account in that you're applying a force to the object, and the physics system will decide how far that object moves based on its mass. One thing that to keep in mind is that mass is exposed in the rigid body API, but in the editor it's exposed as density. So you kind of have some different things to work with there. But
I have a question.
sure.
All of the scripts I'm seeing are like self-contained. How does one access another script? Like, if I recall correctly, like you add scripts as components to objects, so I guess you can probably somehow load another script as an object.
Yeah, there's different ways to do it. If you look back at the this second method, which responds to a simple script event, you can see how it's subscribing to an event, a script event, and those can be transmitted between scripts. So that's one way that scripts can kind of access other scripts. But what you're probably looking for is a thing called reflective, and I can show you back on the GitHub repo if that's helpful. But
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be reflective. I'm just wondering what namespace to import so I can access another script.
Right. So you can. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. The reason I was going to send you to this is because I kind of have all these different ways laid out on this in this README here. Is why. So it's just essentially how to find other scripts in the scene. So reflective would be if I'm in one script and I want to find another one. I can also upload. Even if they're in the same namespace, I still need to find the object in that instance of that script. So I can put multiple classes within a single C# file, which and reference them between. I can instantiate a new version of another script. But all of the scene object scripts have to be on an object that's spawned in the engine. So you probably want to put them on an object that's either created or already built into the scene, and then you kind of have to do an initialization part where it finds the other scripts on the other objects. So there's kind of some different complications there depending on exactly what you're trying to do. But but there's different ways. The script messaging allows you to broadcast messages in the scene so that other scripts can listen for them, and then these reflective message scripts can allow you to find other scripts on objects within the scene without any further information about it.
Okay, but I can't directly reference them by just importing them. So if I, for example, would create some class with static methods for utilities or something, I couldn't just access it directly by importing the class and accessing the method.
You can, if it's a static method like that, you can put it in the same namespace. So that could either be in the same C# file, or if you use a JSON file to include multiple you can. It's sort of like a little CS proj file, and we call those script assemblies.
Yes, okay, that makes sense. That was
so,
what I was wondering.
Yep. So I tried to be. I tried to put some examples together. If you look in samples, there's a script assemblies folder, and you can see like you can just put it all in one file, and in this case, it would just be a namespace which has multiple scripts within it, and then you can access it that way, or you can do it in separate files by having a little JSON project file, which basically just includes those two together. So hopefully that's all there.
You put a lot of work into this repo. I'll definitely read through this.
Of course, I hope it's useful to everyone. So I've been scripting in Sansar for a while now, and I tried to put almost every gotcha I came across, because I feel like if I had had this on day one, it would have saved me months of time. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So.
Speaking of gotchas, I have a question. I have a simple, straightforward script that worked in the previous release of Sansar, but today it's crashing the client for everybody in the scene.
That's exciting.
Yeah, is there a fun way to debug that? Other than change it line by line and see if I unbreak it? Because the log just shows that it sent the chat command and then it just dies. But the script itself seems to work. I could come back into the scene and see it res the thing that it said it was going to. But...
Well, first of all, I think you should send me the script so that I can find out what the heck's going on. That's going to be tricky if it's crashing. Obviously, it's going to be tough. So that should not be happening. We should debug that and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, please send it along and let me know if there's any specific way that has to be configured or whatever.
For sure.
But that would be cool. Yeah. Neat. Welcome. There's a few new people here too. We're trying to dive into some scripting in Sansar. So if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to ask. The repository on the screen there is just is this GitHub repo, which is has been set up for to help you guys as much as possible. So please use it as a resource if you can. And any other questions coming up? What exactly are you doing in that? You said you're just resing some objects and it crashes?
Yep. Basically, what I built a system of landmarks that are just vectors stored in dictionaries. That part works because I can teleport to them with chat commands or whatever. So I built another chat command that just reses an interactable object that links to which of those landmarks it should go to. But right when it reses is when it's crashing the entire scene. And I don't know, did I just link it to a crummy resource or what I did?
Interesting.
That might actually be it. It might... Actually, no, it's not the resource because I tested it with the old one that used to work.
Okay.
Yeah, today it just doesn't work. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know what I changed.
All right. Well, there was a point release just a couple of days ago. So... but I don't think anything changed related to interactions and resing of objects. So
yeah, I didn't think so.
Definitely, let me know what that script is doing so I can try to track it down.
I'm almost tempted. Oh, I can't post the code here though, can I?
Not easily, but if you want to send it to me, I can put it up and we can walk through it or something.
Yeah, let me see. It's an ugly mess, but okay. Where is...
Cool. How about Bagnaria? Did you want to chat about the spherecast issues you were having yesterday?
If you like me to,
Sure,
I don't know if it's going to help other people, but let me switch to VR so my audio is clean.
Is there a release date that you know of for the next big update? What is it, R33 at this point?
Yeah, it'll be R33. I don't think there's a firm release date that's been decided yet,
Okay.
but it's in internally what we call feature freeze, which means it's basically in bug fixing mode. So after bug fixing and more QA, then it'll go into some kind of release schedule. So hopefully it'll be sometime next
Within
week.
a month? Oh, no.
Oh,
Okay, that's
yeah.
soon. Okay, perfect.
Right, I managed to get into VR. I have to get used to the controllers. They're almost like inverted on the Rift S. Alrighty, so it's really kind of like more of like a inconvenience with the sphere cast. And I know you talked about it last week. So what I find is that it just returns a lot of collisions. So let's say I'm standing here and I'm starting my cast maybe right here because this is my object. I don't want to hit at least my object itself. I'm casting this way. I would probably see like, I don't know, 8 to 10 collisions of the elephant from the scare cast and the returned collisions. So the only way I feel I can use it efficiently is to not go too deep, but to make sure that there's nothing in the way and only respond to the first few hits, because otherwise I just do 30 hits and I'm sure that's less efficient.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great gotcha there. I was thinking that after talking to you that it would make sense to have an object private sphere cast and raycast that would automatically ignore the source object. So I'm going to try to get that in.
That would be awesome because that's already super duper helpful because I'm doing it by encountering a hit and then I say, okay, ignore myself basically because I'm checking, I'm finding out the name of the object, but I feel those are not the fastest operations necessarily. So if that can be done at the Havoc level or at least like a higher C++ level, that will definitely be good.
Yeah.
And it's something that will come up for everyone because you definitely are not really interested in yourself when you're casting.
For sure. This is something that happens quite a bit. So, yeah, well, I'll try to add an API.
Cool.
There, in Havoc, you can actually set things to explicitly ignore each other. So, if you pick up a keyframed object, for example, and then you drop it, it's still overlapping your collider, but it doesn't push you. It won't push you out of that volume until you walk away, and then when you walk back. You'll then start colliding with it. So it actually is ignoring collisions with you until you exit the volume, and then it kind of starts respecting collisions again. So we're already using those types of features under the hood. We just don't have them exposed in the script API.
Cool.
So
that sounds great because that will make things more efficient and also more powerful. Because if you, for example, have to start your raycast in front of the NPC, it limits your vision basically, and then I have to do additional casts to the sides of the object, and then it becomes pretty cumbersome because you have to do so many casts to kind of analyze your surroundings and how you turn, and as a result of that.
Sure.
Cool.
Cool. So let's see. EvoAv is talking about a snippet to return a raycast normal to a rotation. Okay, just a useful thing. In terms of someone's asking about speaking German, I do not speak any German, but there are some people in the room who do. So. And what else? Let's see. Especially true for mesh collision shapes. Yeah, you could definitely have dozens of hits. It can. I don't know if it's helpful to filter out all the hits because it might be useful to have multiple hits on the same object, but we don't tell you what the triangle index is because we don't have any other way to expose that or explain where that is. So. It might be worth just filtering out all of the additional hits. I don't know what you guys think of that, but if it should just be one hit per object or not. So.
Cool, Eva. I saw your feedback.
I guess we're talking about raycasting here, right?
Yeah.
I would just say maybe make it an optional parameter to just like say only every object only once.
Yeah, that's a good
Eva,
idea.
we can get to the name. You just have to go through one more step. I can paste that in.
Component ID.name. What are you hoping to see there? Like volume 1 or whatever?
Unity is actually a pretty nice implementation for raycasting because you can assign layers to objects, and you can just say this raycast should only interact with certain layers. So maybe something like this could be achieved as well.
Yeah, we are working on the ability to show and hide objects. So with that, we also want to deliver like being able to show and turn on and off physics collision. So we're hoping to get to those, and then ideally we'll also be able to do some kind of layering system. But I think that's going to be a little further off. But
Yeah,
it definitely is. Yeah, I mean, we have our layers set up within the engine, of course, and then there's lots of different options and ways we could expose that. So it's just, yeah, we'll have to see. So.
pretty useful for raycast because if, for example, you want to create a mini game, I guess, and you only want your like the actual components that belong to this mini game to interact with your script raycasts, then it would make sense to assign like a custom layer to all of them.
Yep.
But maybe that's stuff for the future.
Yep. So Bagnaria is pasting some code in there. Turn on and off collision during animation. That would be something you can do. You can attach collisions to bones now. So you can put it, not directly to bones, but to different meshes on the object, basically. So it will animate with part of the appropriate part of the skeleton. So you can have a body which has a collision on it and arms swinging around that aren't moving in the same way or have their own separate collisions.
Now, I don't know if Bagnaria asked you, but how do we detect which collision like to do something with, or interact with, or shoot something out of, or whatever? Let's say we have multiple collisions on a character.
Anyone know how to detect?
Detect it or use it, you know?
Right. Yeah, there's not a good way to do that right now. So I have a raccoon by my feet. So,
As long as we know that and we're not banging our heads on something that can't work.
yeah, there's no real distinction amongst them. I mean, you can get multiple components, but you don't know what their which one is which. I think without just some identifying factor that you'd have to just figure out. But yeah. I'll make a note of that, and we'll have to chat.
Well, you know, my cannons are all broken now because for whatever reason I can't get the dispenser to shoot and move with a collision now.
I'm a little confused about what's complicating that. I need to think more about it, I guess. But yes, we should take a look and see if we can figure out how to solve that for you.
The thing is, it's probably something that was not intended to be used the way we're doing it in with the cannons that we have, which is basically animating the rotation of the barrel, and then relying on its rotation to be converted into the direction that the object shoots out of. I mean, it works when you're holding it, but like when you're just doing the rotation by animation, it doesn't no longer transform that or recognize that rotation.
Okay.
Basically, always shoots out like vector forward.
Yeah, so that was probably the mover API changed that base object around a bit.
And actually, you know, I don't want things to break, of course, but it'd almost be better in a way because we have collisions now on bones, so I could add bones to that cannon and have, you know, the base and everything together in one rig, and then animate the collision on that bone for the cannon. But we have no way to say shoot it out of that collision.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, let me talk to Stretch a bit more about that.
And it brings me to another question, because we started having multiple collisions in our animated objects, like the head is a separate one, but I don't think there's a way to differentiate between what components have been hit, so you can get back, of course. Yeah. So that was your question earlier, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a fine question, and I'll have to give you an answer later. There is no way to do it right now is the short answer, but we'll see if we can get something in there. I don't think there's a reason why we can't have the component ID names and that might be a quick thing that I can put in even for R33, so I'll look into that.
When are we gonna have a held function?
What do you mean by that?
Held down trigger.
You want to call back on every update or something when it's held?
Yeah, I mean, we spent, me and a buddy, Surreal, we spent like 2 days going back and forth with that script. You know, I'd messaged you about it once.
Yeah.
We spent like 2 days going back and forth troubleshooting that script, and we finally got something to work. I would just like to have seen, something where just like a held function in place would have like solved 50% of the problem instantly.
Yeah, so the reason, I mean, there's not like a specific, there's not a specific, like, update loop, right? It's not like there's no specific time when scripts will be called or won't be called. So there's not really an obvious place to have a held function, but I can just show you guys the script snippet I sent, just because that might be helpful to chat about. But basically just something like this, where it's just subscribing to a command, and then in your case you're trying to make something start shooting and then stop, or it sounded like it was an automatic sort of weapon or something you were making.
Right.
So yeah, it's just subscribing to command data. So what I would do in terms of making that, this might be a good thing for us to look at now then, is so the script snippet that's on the screen there is what I sent him, which is basically just what you start doing something when it's pressed, and then you stop doing it when it's released. So, but there's not like a specific update. So, if you wanted to do something like that, you probably would want to do a coroutine that, and maybe some of the mover examples would be a good place to look if you're, just because I know we put in some coroutines there that update. But basically, you'd probably want to subscribe to the held object thing. So you have to pick up the weapon, and then when you're holding it, you would subscribe to the trigger command, and then you start shooting when it's pressed and stop shooting when it's released. And then, or if they drop it, then you'd stop shooting probably too. So those would be sort of the complications I would imagine. That's probably a great sample for me to put together for next week's meeting, and I can send it to you when it's ready, if that's helpful.
I mean, we got a pretty decent script going.
Okay.
We're just ironing out bugs right now.
Okay. Cool.
I was just wondering if that was going to be something that was going to be implemented down the line, and I was, like, if it's going to, that would save us time in the future. But if not, we can just copy paste. It don't matter.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's any plans around changing that, so it'll probably stay the way it is for now.
All right.
But we can try to get a good sample going for you. I know Granddad Got Mojo's got a lot of things going on with start and stop events as well. So there's actually a bug that's just been fixed that should be in R33, where if you're holding one command and you start holding another one and then you release the first command, you get, or release the second command rather, then you get, you get some errors in terms of you get a fake command released even though it's not. So there's some events that are being fixed there for multiple buttons being held down at the same time.
I think we've seen that with the bubble game.
Yeah, probably so. But that should be fixed in R33. Cool. Anything else going on?
Oh, I had a general question.
Sure.
Because it was fresh on my mind. Is there a way that we can? Is there a way or a script or something that has the ability to follow like any specific avatar if they like decide to join a game or something like that, like a HUD almost?
Yeah, HUDs are a bit tough right now. You can see the arrow and the bee in this room that are chasing people around. It's always tracking the last person to join the scene, so that's why it's on Seal North at the moment. But you probably don't want to use that for a HUD. I know, like in Scurry Waters, they have the media surface that you can spawn like on an iPad, so you can kind of check your achievements from anywhere. And then like Gindibble has his Sandcraft sort of, panel that spawns in front of you. So there's different ways to do all that stuff, but there's no real HUD stuff. That said, there is some work on a progress bar that's coming out, and it should be in R33. So finally, the client UI object is going to get a little bit more functionality. So right now it can only do a modal dialog, but there's going to be a sort of little loading bar that you can do as well. So that's being added for various things. The API hasn't been fully decided yet, so I don't think it would do you any service to share it right now.
Are there plans for user interfaces basically that people can make custom? Or like custom user interfaces?
It's been talked about quite a lot, but no, there's no specific plan for it yet.
I just had an idea that like the simpler it is, probably the better it will be to implement and the more customizable it will be.
Yeah, no, it would be great if it's very simple, and if it could be extensible so it could be configured in different ways. But right now it's just going to be a little loading bar.
Well, that's something.
Yep.
I guess I can stack them above each other or something.
We'll see how it goes. Yep. We don't have good we haven't implemented the full system to be able to put UI that tracks like a 3D object in camera space, and at least in terms of having that for users yet. So, but it's being thought about and hopefully worked on soon.
I hope it will also be in 2D, like there will be options. Like the best would be if it would be the same API, but you can say, hey, now it's attached to the screen and it's in screen space, or it's attached to this object or avatar and it's in object space.
Yep.
I have a question about the playing cards. Obviously, you're explicitly switching the portion of the map to be displaying the different face values, right? Like, is that open API? Can we do that?
Oh, that's not. I'm not doing anything fancy there. There's literally 52 objects in my scene.
52 objects, okay. I thought you were switching that texture, but that would be a nice little thing to have, right? So that we can control that.
It's coming. After objects show and hide, then we'll be able to get, because then we'll be getting down to the mesh level from script, and then after we have mesh, then we can get to material. So that's one of the main reasons it hasn't been done yet, is because we didn't have we're missing so many pieces along the way to get to the materials. So, but it's getting.
I was just wondering if you already had it.
I know. Yeah, it would be good. I did write a program to generate the cards, but I didn't. I wasn't able to do anything using a fancy API to switch them at runtime. So.
Unity's HUD system is really nice. I'm sure you guys have taken a look at that, right?
Yeah, HUDs are, I don't know, there's a lot of debates about HUDs in VR and whether or not they're a good thing and stuff, so that's also slowing things down. But, yeah,
that's not the first time we've heard that, you know? And it seems like every time something slows us down, we just don't do it, and then we do it, and then it's great, you know?
Yep, I feel you.
Yeah.
I think for games it's hard to avoid that. But I would personally say, like, if right now all the HUDs are so in your face, right? Like the emote HUD, for example. I mean, it's great, but like if you want to have it stick around, it's really out of it's not in a good position to be right in the smack center of your screen. So I rather have like my emos at the bottom, even in VR, like at the bottom where I just move the panel down, and in desktop, definitely not in the middle of the screen, but like at the border somewhere.
Right. It would be good. We have UX people who are, trying to put all these things together. So I defer to them.
Who is your UX person? So I can go on their turf.
Quoth does a lot of the UX, and Istari and Nelly. So those are probably the three you should talk to.
Cool.
And Galileo is always happy to get feedback too, of course. But I know Bagnaria has contacts deep within the organization. So.
Yeah, what Ivo was just writing in chat would maybe be also be like an alternative to just have an HTML and maybe CSS based system for HUDs. I mean, that would definitely ensure that it's customizable.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see. We have the under the hood we use XAML with the Microsoft Blend and all that stuff. So there's definitely ways we've thought about different ways to expose it and how we're gonna make that potentially usable for the end users. But right now we just have very specific panels that you can only customize in certain ways. So.
Mostly, I'd just like it to remember when I turn the quest panel off.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, like that one. Yep.
But you can't do 3 buttons yet, can you?
Nope, only 2 buttons.
Damn it.
1 or 2.
How do you do 1?
We just put an empty string for the other one. So.
Oh, okay. There was a bug, I can't remember, it was like R30 or something, where all of the ones that had 1 for some reason showed 2. They showed the regular one plus an empty one. It was kind of funny.
Yep, that was That was a funny time.
Thanks, Leslie. I got to scoot off and get my event going.
Of course. Nice to see you, Solus.
See you laters.
See ya. Any other questions before we sort of wrap up?
No, I think that was it.
All right. Cool. Well, there's I'll just plug the GitHub repo one more time here, just because I definitely want everyone to use that, and hopefully it's a useful resource, especially when you can't find me. And then let's see, if we go into the regular version, so when you make an event, it makes a separate version of the scene, but if you go into the regular version of the scene, we can see the little impulse bump script in progress. So let me create a portal there. So yeah, if you follow that one, there's two little cubes on the ground that should be able to let you see that script in action. And I guess that's it for today.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, this is a great meeting.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Thanks,
helpful.
Leslie.
Of course. I'm happy to help, and find me in Discord or in World, whatever's good.
I'm glad you said you liked the meeting. Since you're all here and you like coming to meetings, what other meetings would be useful for you? Anybody have any? We could do fashion design. We could do anything.
UI meetings.
I wouldn't mind a scripting for total noobs or something.
Okay.
Because I mean, most of the conversation here, as much as I learn a little bit, it's well beyond me. Where I'm like, how do I take one of your GitHub scripts and bring it in here without it totally messing up? You know what I mean?
That's fair.
So I wouldn't mind that.
I do hope that I did try to address that on the GitHub repo. So there's how to create a scripted experience in Sansar. Number 3 on the table of contents. So hopefully that's helpful. There's a link right there.
Maybe we can do one sort of scripting crash course a month or something, Leslie, if you'd be into that. We can talk about that offline, but maybe we could do that. We're already taking up a lot of your time, so I don't.
Well, I think what would be more beneficial for Sansar, is to give people a head start with using scripts, not even being scared that they're scripts, but almost kind of like rebranding at least the meeting to something that says, okay, this is a meeting for non-scripters who want to create like things that are script-like. Like, I mean, obviously that has to be thought out a little bit more, but so it's not intimidating.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I was going to do a simple script class sometime too, so just to configure those and use those without having to import anything. So those are definitely potential things we can focus some time on soon.
Yeah,
also, I think we're going to switch to a new time next week also. There's a couple people who can't make Wednesdays, so I'm going to try to find another day. Just heads up.
Cool. Okay. And if anybody has any other kinds of classes they'd like, or classes, I don't know what these called, meetings, office hours, just let me know, because we have people that are sitting around doing nothing, so I'm sure we can put them to work. I'm just kidding, of course, but it's not happening at all.
I did have another thought.
Go for it.
Maybe, like, it wouldn't have to be weekly by any stretch, but the occasional class on kind of scene optimization. Because I know for a lot of new people, they'll do things like put out 4 million lights and they're all crossing each other, and then you end up with like 10 frames per second. But they don't realize, and I mean, I'm the same way. I'd be messed if Bagnaria hadn't taught me. So.
Yeah, so that would be really cool. Maybe Zayas could do that. So he actually gave me a scene optimization, like 15-minute crash course, and I thought that was super useful. And I don't even build scenes, so maybe I can shop that around.
because there's already so much to learn when you're learning from scratch. So yeah.
Something to add on this learning on the scratch aspect, I guess. I guess when there would be classes like that, maybe thinking of some sort of homework, more or less, for the attendees could turn out to be very useful. So
homework?
Yeah,
I get it. Like
kind of
exercises,
like-
some sort of practical
like kind of-
application.
There you go,
Yes,
exercise.
exactly.
Don't
And then
call
like
it homework.
Yeah, don't go.
in the next meeting, you could like look at the results and stuff. That would
Glutton
probably
for
motivate
punishment,
people
yeah.
to do stuff.
Yeah, Leslie has all the
Leisure
free
punishment.
time in the world, so I'm sure he has time.
That's right. I need to grade your assignments, so yeah.
But I do think
Yeah.
maybe some practical
My
applications.
dog ate my homework.
It has been helpful when people have brought questions where they've tried to implement something, and then we can kind of look at theirs and then do, modify it and try to make it work slightly differently or whatever. So definitely, if you have things that you're working on that you need assistance with, please bring them to the session or just find me out of band. Either way is fine.
Yeah.
And I also say the lab doesn't always have to do everything, because the community, I'm sure, is willing to ship in. So we could also have like a creator meeting where you pick one or two people covering a subject matter like scene optimization. I mean, we've done that with drags, but those meetings sadly have kind of disappeared, like the recordings. But I think like that is maybe a good way to save some resources, and I'm sure there's quite a few people willing to talk about the things they care about.
That's right.
Bagnaria, you just volunteered to hold our first scene optimization class. You're the best.
If anybody does want to do that, in total seriousness, you'll have my full support. And by that, I mean not just like sort of my emotional support, which probably doesn't mean a lot to anybody, but sort of marketing and promotional support. So we can put that on Twitter, on the events and everything, and make sure that a lot of people will see it. And I'll also live stream it. So
Yeah, so that it's not just a one-timer.
right, and it'll build up a nice little content library. But that's a good point. If I know this is going to take some goodwill just from the community members, but that's how you build a community. So. If anybody wants to do those things, feel free. I'll help you with the planning and sort of getting a good time, and of course the distribution. So that way you have our support as well.
I do have probably a couple of videos on optimization. The only thing that's tricky about all that stuff is it's not that it's opinion. But, I mean, there are many different ways to do things, so there's not one answer,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that you can change, right?
We can always sorry, excuse me. We can always tell people that there's many ways to skin a cat. I hope that axiom is not troubling for people that are not used to it. But
Isn't it a cow?
No, it's a cat.
Really? No skinning cats in my world.
Just like beef better.
Yeah, I'm fine with slaughtering my cow, but like cats, not so much.
You're pretty casual. Should I say casual?
My strong belief is if you eat the animal and you're not willing to kill it, you don't deserve to eat it.
You're like Jon Snow and Ned Stark.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's a big deal to kill an animal.
Aww.
It is.
No more Game of Thrones. So sad.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Need a
I'm gonna end the
therapy
Twitch
group.
Thank you,
stream now.
everyone.
Thanks, Gal.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Leslie.
Of course.
Thank you.